You know Virgo. At least that's what you believe. You know she overanalyzes, that she thinks before she acts, that sometimes she gets so caught up in the details that opportunity closes the window while she's still calculating whether the timing is right. You've heard this before. It's been said in 1,000 different ways. But what if I told you that everything you know about why Virgo hesitates is incomplete? That's not wrong, incomplete. Like seeing only the surface of something that has layers that have never been revealed to you. Because Virgo doesn't hesitate due to overanalysis. Virgo hesitates because within that second before the answer, that instant that other signs don't even realize exists, something very specific happens, something that has never been precisely named. Virgo's internal laboratory is not evaluating the opportunity, it's evaluating you. And that detail, that difference of just one word, absolutely changes everything that comes after. If you're a Virgo or live with one, what's coming in this video will be disturbingly familiar. It will be that feeling of recognizing something you felt dozens of times but never managed to put into words. That pattern you see happening, that you understand while it's happening, and yet you can't completely stop it. Stay. Because in the next few minutes, this pattern will finally have a name, and having a name changes what you can do with it. There's one thing nobody talks about regarding Virgo when the subject is opportunity. They talk about analysis. They talk about perfectionism. They say Virgo overthinks, takes too long, lets chances slip by while still calculating. But that's only what appears on the surface. What's happening inside is quite different, and that's exactly why most explanations about this sign never come close to what you really feel when an opportunity presents itself. Because Virgos aren't afraid of opportunities. Virgos are afraid of not being good enough for them, and that difference changes everything. When you look at an opportunity, be it a job offer, a life change, a new relationship, a different path, there's a moment, a specific instant before the answer. Most people don't notice this moment. Virgo notices, with a frightening clarity. It's a second when the whole world stops, and within that second, it's not the opportunity that's being analyzed. It's you. You start mapping, fast, invisibly, almost automatically. Who would I need to be to say yes to this? Am I ready? Am I good enough? And since I still have doubts, the answer is probably not yet. This is Virgo's inner laboratory, and it never closes. Most people imagine a laboratory as a place of discovery, of advancement, of experiments that lead to some concrete result. But Virgo's internal laboratory often functions as something else, as a containment system. A place where each hypothesis needs to be tested, verified once more before being considered valid. And the problem with this system isn't that it's stupid. On the contrary, the problem is that it's too intelligent for its own good. Because when you have the ability to foresee what could go wrong before anything happens, you also have the ability to construct perfect reasons not to act. Reasons that seem like wisdom, that seem like discernment, that seem like emotional maturity. But sometimes it's just fear with sophisticated vocabulary. And that's not weakness, quite the opposite. That's the most refined protection mechanism that exists, built by a sign that learned early on that being seen unprepared hurts, that exposing something imperfect has a real cost, that it's safer to wait a little longer than to launch yourself prematurely. The problem is that the time never comes. There's an image that always comes to mind when I think of this pattern, that of a navigator, the best navigator in the world, with the most precise instruments in existence, the most detailed maps, the ability to read the stars in a way that no other crew member around can even imagine. And this navigator is in port, studying, reviewing calculations, updating forecasts. Because what if the map has an error? What if sea conditions change mid-route? What if it's not the right time to leave yet? The ship is perfect, the crew is brilliant, and the port is becoming more and more familiar than it should be. Have you ever felt that way? That specific feeling of being completely prepared on paper and yet paralyzed in practice? Of seeing the opportunity, understanding the opportunity, knowing it's real, and yet remaining on the sidelines, waiting for some certainty that never seems to arrive with enough force. Because there's something that the Virgo laboratory can never confirm. And it's precisely this, something that changes Virgo's relationship with every opportunity that comes along. And what happened? Before introducing myself, before saying yes, before occupying the space that opportunity is opening up, and this waiting, this instant that becomes days, that becomes weeks, that sometimes becomes years, is the place where I want to stay for a second with you. It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book, The Divine Path, that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose. It's not a self-help guide in the conventional sense. It's more like a mirror positioned at the right angle, that angle that no one has ever accurately placed for you. For Virgo specifically, it talks about what happens when your analytical capacity starts working for you instead of against you. When perfection stops being the filter that eliminates opportunities and becomes the compass that points to what really matters. When the laboratory ceases to be a prison and begins to be a tool. You're at that point right now, still processing, still with that unsettling feeling of recognizing something you'd rather not have named. And it's precisely that state, that lingering discomfort, that movement happening inside you right now that makes this the best time to take that step. Not when the dust settles, not when you feel more ready. Now. The link is in the first pinned comment. But be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. And while you let all this settle, tell me in the comments, what was the last opportunity you let slip by waiting to feel more prepared? It doesn't have to be the biggest one of your life. It can be that small one that still pops into your thoughts from time to time. The image of a fire alarm is the most honest one I know for this standard. Think about how an alarm works. It was built to protect, to respond to real heat, real smoke, real danger. And most of the time, it does exactly that. It fulfills the function for which it was created. But sometimes an alarm is calibrated too sensitively, and it starts going off not in real emergencies, but every time someone lights a candle in the next room, every time the sun comes through the window in a different way, every time something warm, something new, something that looks like a genuine possibility gets too close. Virgo possesses one of the most sophisticated internal alarms in the zodiac. Fine-tuned, precise, capable of detecting risks that others don't even perceive. And at some point, and that point is different for each person, this alarm was calibrated to a sensitivity that the world no longer demands. Every time you said, "I'm not ready yet," when deep down you knew you were. Every time you analyzed an opportunity until it ceased to be an opportunity. Every time you saw someone less qualified than you say yes, move forward, and then you watched from afar with that strange mixture of sincere admiration and something that hurts. The alarm was going off. Not in response to a real danger, in response to the fear of being seen doing something that isn't yet perfect. And here's what nobody talks about clearly. It's not Virgo being weak. It's Virgo being so intelligent that they manage to build an armor out of their own intelligence. So sophisticated that it appears wise inside and out. So convincing that it even fooled the person who built it. But now you know what it is. And knowing changes something. Because you can no longer use the word discernment for a pattern you've just recognized as well-dressed fear. Not entirely. Not without realizing it, and that realization, however uncomfortable it may be, is the first real move. Now comes the part that most content about Virgo avoids, because it's the part that hurts in a different way, the inventory. Virgo carries an internal archive of missed opportunities, and this archive is maintained with impressive precision, dates, details, the exact feeling of the moment the window closed. Virgo doesn't forget these things, not in the way they'd like to forget. There's a poetic name for it, the archaeology of what could have been, the archaeologist who excavates and keeps finding artifacts from the future, objects that could have existed, structures that could have been built, stories that could have been lived, and which remained in the ground by a choice that seemed safe at the time it was made. The weight of this inventory isn't just emotional, it has an operational function. It feeds the laboratory. Every missed opportunity becomes a new variable in the next analysis. See how I was wrong last time, thinking I was ready. See how things can go wrong. See how it's wiser to wait a little longer. The archives of the past justify the paralysis of the present, and this is where the most tempting question arises. Is it too late? The honest answer is, that's the wrong question. Not because it's too late or too early, but because it's looking in the wrong direction. The transformative question isn't, is it too late for that opportunity? The transformative question is, what have I learned about how I function, about my lab, about my alarm, about the patterns I operate without realizing it, that makes me more capable now than I would have been then? Virgo truly learns from their experiences. Not superficially, deeply, with a quality of absorption that few signs possess, and each opportunity left behind leaves a real deposit of self-knowledge. The problem is that Virgo almost always categorizes this deposit as a failure instead of a learning experience. Change the label, the file's content remains the same. What changes is what it means and what it enables. This archive of past opportunities, this inventory that Virgo carries with impressive fidelity, doesn't have to be a burden. But to stop being a burden and become fuel, it needs to be reread with a different language. That's exactly what the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose offers Virgo. Not a map of regrets, but a new language to interpret what you've already experienced. A way to transform every accumulated what if into clarity about the what now. Because Virgo doesn't need motivation, it needs direction. And this book was made precisely for that. If you feel that something is moving, that this isn't just any video, that's the sign. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. Recalibration does not require destroying the laboratory. It requires changing the object of the experiment. Virgo is extraordinary at analyzing systems, at identifying where something fails before anyone else notices, at building hypotheses with precision, testing variables, mapping consequences with a level of detail bordering on the supernatural. This is a real skill, not a zodiac sign cliché, a genuine ability that has immense value when pointed in the right direction. What happens when you apply all of this not to the opportunity itself, but to yourself in relation to the opportunity? Not does this proposal have risks, but what within me resists this proposal? And is that something genuine wisdom, or is it an alarm going off for no real reason? Not, am I prepared for this? But what real capacity do I already possess that my own standards prevent me from recognizing as sufficient? Not what could go wrong, but what happens to me if I don't try. This is the recalibrated telescope. Same instrument, same eye, different angle. And what appears through the lens is disturbingly different from what you were seeing before. Because Virgo always had access to the answer. The question was never about ability. It was about the direction of their gaze. When the perspective changes, the opportunity changes shape. You stop focusing primarily on what could go wrong and start seeing what can be built. You stop exclusively calculating the risk of failure and start calculating the cost of not trying. You stop waiting for the perfect version of yourself. That version that will never fully arrive, because perfection in Virgo is a moving goal. and start working with the real version, which is extraordinarily more capable than the laboratory usually admits. This is what I call the language of yes. It's not an impulsive yes, it's not a yes without analysis. It's a yes that arises when analysis points in the right direction, inward to who you truly are and know, instead of just pointing to the emptiness of everything that could still go wrong. And there's a strange thing that happens when Virgo starts practicing this language. Analysis doesn't disappear. It continues to exist, refined, precise, valuable, but it starts working with you instead of against you. It begins to identify what you need to move forward instead of constructing reasons to stay. It starts to be an ally instead of a tribunal. And it is at this moment that something that seemed impossible becomes concrete. Virgin says yes, not with complete confidence, not without questions, not without a mental list of possible complications, because Virgos will always have that list, and that's part of the gift. But you say yes, and you start moving. And what happens in this movement? In this first step taken before seeing the complete path is what the deepest Virgo pattern never believed would be possible. The bridge begins to build itself beneath your feet, not before, not in the planning, not in the analysis, after the yes, after the action. You take the first step and the plank appears. You take the second and the next one emerges. You don't see the whole path, you never will, no real path works that way. But you realize that each step is creating the ground for the next, and something that was completely blocked begins to flow. The right connections appear. The information you needed arrives at the moment you were ready to receive it. The capabilities you knew you had but couldn't access begin to manifest, because now there's a concrete place for them to exist. This isn't magic. It's what happens when Virgo stops using its intelligence to hold back and starts using it to move forward. And here's what's most disturbing and most beautiful about all of this. Virgo has always been capable of this. Always. Ability was never the problem. The lab was never the enemy. Analysis was never the obstacle. It was just the direction. This bridge that is built as you walk, it demands something that no laboratory can simulate. The first step taken before seeing the ground. And it is precisely in this space, between the yes and the result, between movement and clarity, that Virgo most needs anchoring. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign towards a life of purpose was built for this specific moment, to support Virgo's discernment when she is in motion, preventing the laboratory from sabotaging what she has just chosen to build. It is the tool that transforms the yes of an isolated act of courage into a new life pattern. You're in motion right now. Don't let this moment pass you by. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. There is a name for the pattern we are navigating today. It's not perfectionism. That label is true, but incomplete. It's not insecurity. Virgo can be one of the most self-assured people there is. It's not fear of failure, because what Virgo fears most is not failure, but the exposure of imperfection. The more accurate name is hijacked self-demand. Virgo possesses a genuine and extraordinary capacity for self-improvement. They recognize what needs improvement and work on it with a dedication that few can sustain. They see a level above where they are and build that difference with method and patience. This is one of the most real gifts this sign possesses, a gift that, when used consciously, produces results that impress the world around them. But when this gift operates unconsciously, when the ruler of Virgo is not in Virgo's hands, but running on its own, fueled by the poorly calibrated alarm, by the directionless laboratory, it transforms into a barrier, into a ruler that never stands still. Always an inch higher than you can reach, always a little beyond the point where you are now. And the opportunity, which had been patiently waiting there, is evaluated with this non-existent yardstick, and is left for the next cycle, which will also have a yardstick, which will also be a centimeter higher. Virgo's prison has no visible bars, no chains. It has an impeccable work desk, an organized list, a personal development plan that's always one adjustment away from being completely ready to be executed. It's the most elegant prison there is. And the key was always in the same place, in your hand. It was never lost. It was just kept in your pocket while you studied the padlock a little more. What changes now is not Virgo. It's not the laboratory. It's not the analytical capacity. It will continue to be one of the most powerful tools available to you. What changes is the permission. This word is small and weighty. Permission. Permission to be good enough now, not later. Not when the list of adjustments is complete. It will never be, because Virgo is driven by a pattern of continuous growth, and that's part of who you are. But permission to say yes now, with the questions that still have no answers, with the risks that the laboratory has already mapped, with the imperfection that is part of anything real and alive. The opportunity that can change your standard of living isn't waiting for the best version of you. It's right here, in this encounter between who you are and what's being offered, with all the beauty and all the incompleteness that implies. Virgo was built for discernment, for analysis, for refinement, for perceiving what others miss. These are not flaws that need correcting, they are powers that need direction. And when the direction is right, when the telescope is pointed at the right angle, when the laboratory is working in favor instead of against, Virgo doesn't just seize the opportunity. Virgo transforms it into something no other sign could have done with it, because that's what Virgo does with what it receives. It transforms, refines, elevates. The question was never whether you were capable. The question was, are you going to say yes?